listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy and Elliot. We also have producer Tish here with us, and we are excited to start your morning with you with positive and uplifting thoughts. In today's show, we're going to talk about a restaurant in the UK who is going to beat inflation. We're going to be looking into that. Also, we're going to be looking at a miracle rescue at a cave in Laos. A lot of the world has been following the drama that's going on with the 7 amateur miners who got all trapped inside of a cave, like really deep into a cave.
Wow.
And their rescue is ongoing, but there's some miracles there to report. We're going to have an interview with Dr. Don Batten with Evidences in Design in Plant Physiology, and our encounter with God. We're going to study the Holy Spirit and repentance. That's at 8 o'clock if you're still tuned with us. So if you're here with us for the short haul or for the long haul, we've got you covered. Before we get into the UK restaurant, I would like to ask our producer Tish to give us a new quiz question from the cave of quizzes. Please, producer Tish.
All right. Which young man was God correcting Samuel about when he said, "People look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart"? Which young man was God correcting Samuel about when he said, "People look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart"? We have not a correct answer in our studio so far. If you think you know the answer to this one, 0491 064 669. According to the list here, that is incorrect. Okay. If it is in fact correct, I will get back to you with the correct answer.
All righty. Okay.
There you go. I actually don't know.
So say the question one more time. Let me see if perhaps I didn't understand it properly.
All right. It says, which young man was God correcting Samuel about when he said, "People look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart"?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if we're reading from the same Bible, I'm pretty sure that my answer is correct, but we're going to look into it. Yes. Have a check to see, Samuel. But I think I'm pretty positive on that one. I'm pretty positive.
Okay, I'm going to put forward my answer.
Okay, you guys both got the same answer. No, apparently the answer I have is correct.
Okay.
So,
wow.
No
I think
answers that are correct.
We're going to learn new things. I'm keen to see what the answer according to Producer Tish will be, and we'll compare it with us.
Let's see. Is this more on the right track?
Maybe.
Okay, we'll find out.
Okay.
We'll find out. There you go.
All right, my friends. So let's move on then. And I'd like to ask you, so how is it that a restaurant in the UK is planning to fight against inflation and keep offering affordable meals to people?
Now,
what's the secret?
This is very interesting, actually, because I saw this article and I thought, wow, this is a very fascinating business model, considering especially that inflation exists, everything's getting more expensive, food's getting more expensive, eating out is costing a bomb these days, you know. So how can people go to restaurants if they can't necessarily afford it due to inflation? Well, this one restaurant in Stroud in the UK has come up with a system to try and solve that very problem. And it's fascinating. So what it's called, the restaurant is called The Long Table. And as the name suggests, the restaurant is designed to be one big long table that everyone just sits along this one long table, kind of like a banquet of some kind.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, nice.
That's how it kind of is. Just one long table that everyone sits down. You sit next to someone that you might not even know, and you all get between. The way they've run it is that on the menu there's just one or two dishes to choose from. So you don't have like 10 dishes. It's just one dish or maybe two dishes.
Okay.
Everyone chooses between that one or two dishes, or maybe it's just one. Everyone gets the same dish, you know. But what's interesting here is that you only pay what you can afford, which is a fascinating business model. I was looking at this and I thought, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So how it works is that most of the time, the cost of the meal, to cover the expenses of this restaurant, a meal, if everyone comes in, they'd usually needs to pay about pay around 10 or 11 pounds. For if everyone comes in and they pay between 10 or 11 pounds, that'll cover the cost of this restaurant.
That including like wages.
That's
and
including,
rent.
I'm pretty sure that's including everything.
The ingredients.
Yeah. But not everyone that comes into this place is able to pay that. So if you can only pay £5 or £6, well, you pay £5 or £6, but you still get your meal. But then there's some people who come in and they can pay more than 10 or 11 pounds. And so if they feel so inclined, they pay more than 10 or 11 pounds. They may pay double. They may pay 20 pounds. But what's so fascinating is that last year, now this is really cool. Last year, 38,305 meals were served. That's the total number. 38,305 meals were served. Around half of the meals were paid for at below the cost price, and 10% were community meals, which means they didn't cost anything. So some people can go there and they have no money with which to pay, but they need food. They can go there and they can get a meal for free. The thing that I think is so fascinating about this is that the only way this business model works is if there are people that are generous, which I really actually admire, the fact that they rely on people's generosity and people will come in and be generous, and it actually keeps the business model running. Because it could be that everyone, and now this is what's fascinating, you don't need to prove that you can't pay for the meal. So I could be a millionaire and walk in there and go, well, I can't afford it today. I'll just pay £5.
Sure.
So it could be that if everyone was greedy, they'd go in and they'd all say, well, I can't pay anything, and just try and get as many free meals as they can. But that's not the case, which I really like. I like the fact that people are willing to, spend or support a business model like this, and that they're willing to pay extra than what is required so that it'll help support the business. I think that's really cool. But the other thing that I think is really interesting about...
So did they ended up, like on average, earning the price that they were asking for each plate, or are they in a deficit, or are they in a surplus?
I'm assuming they're in a surplus. And the reason why I say that is because there is one restaurant that they open in Stroud, but they've opened another restaurant in another area of the UK. I can't remember exactly where it is, but they've opened up another restaurant. Usually you don't open up second restaurants if you can't cover the cost of the
But I'm
first
wondering if they are doing that, and I think it's an amazing ministry. Actually, we have one of these coming up right next to us. I don't know if you're going to be talking about that one.
Which one?
Newcastle, at Newcastle University.
Not that one, but that is also one.
Yes, with the same model. So actually, our friend Lawson is heavily involved with that, with the Newcastle University Seventh-day Adventist Church. They got some grants. They got a nice food truck, and what they're going to be doing is that they're going to be offering to students at Newcastle University the same model: pay as much as you can.
Yeah,
basically pay what you can, and then you for the plate, for the meal, which is great. But at the same time, I know that sometimes these initiatives are possible because there is a network of donors who are willing to say, hey, we are committed to keep this thing going. So whatever are the costs, we're going to cover that. Yeah,
that's true. Now, I didn't find out whether they had donors or anything like that. I'm not sure. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I didn't.
Yeah, but a big shout out, man. This is a
it's
real
really cool.
ministry.
Yeah, the long table. I think it's really awesome. And the other thing that I thought was fascinating about the way it's run, because it's just one big long table. It's not like you can have your own individual private table where you've just got you and your friends or whatever. Because it's one big long communal table, it's almost kind of like church potluck sort of thing. But what I love about that is that you will be in conversation, or you'll bump shoulders and meet people that you will never usually meet, which I think is really cool. I like that social aspect of it, that because like in the article, they mentioned this, that most of the time when you go to restaurants, not only are you paying for a meal, but you're also paying for the privacy aspect of your own table. But that's not what's happening here. They're actually flipping that kind of, typical model on its head. And actually, you sit in a big communal table with people that you've probably never met, that you might strike up a conversation with and learn something completely new or make a new friendship, which I really, really like. Now,
It's really cool.
the thing that's interesting is the person who actually founded this, his name is Tom Herbert. This is really cool. He is a 5th generation baker, and he grew up like just around food. That's where he was growing up. His dad his granddad used to own a bakery, and his granddad would hire people who were fresh out of prison, and then they would make bakeries or like hot bread shops and name the bakery after that person who was from prison but has now started their own bakery. So, like for example, you might have Joe's Bakery, or they might have John's Bakery or Ian's Bakery. All these different names that are started up from these people that have just come out of prison. But this guy, Tom Herbert, his granddad would help set these people up and make bakeries.
That's so awesome.
Which I think that's such an awesome ministry, such an awesome ministry. And so with Tom, who has grown up with this kind of mentality of food as a way to not only feed people, but it's a way of ministry as well. And how can we help people that are in need? Like his granddad was helping fresh, like ex-prisoners. Well, he's discovered this business model that has taken a bit of time to try to fix and work so that it actually is sustainable. Well, he's figured it out so that he's able to do this kind of thing, which is able to minister to those people that need the food, that can't afford it, but also be like a great community, great social place for people to gather, because
I love it. It's just such a great vision.
Yeah. And I think it's awesome. Now, we actually, like you were saying, we have something similar to that, which is at the Newcastle University. But we also have, in Hamilton, there's the food pantry as well, which exists, which is kind of, in some ways, a similar sort of thing, where you can go and pay a certain amount of money. You can get as many groceries as you need, as well as free dinner, pretty much, or a dinner along with it, which I think is awesome, because, we see in the Bible, Jesus is oftentimes spending a lot of time eating and breaking bread and having that communal meals with his disciples and other people. And I think it's such a great way to, minister to people as well as get to know people. So I thought that was just a really fascinating.
Yeah. And I love it because groceries can take up a big chunk of a person's budget every month.
Absolutely.
Or eating out as well. Sometimes you can't, cook for whatever circumstance you're out and about, and you just need to stop at a place with a quick and delicious, and healthy grab.
Yeah.
Which is often hard to find. And I do not know about Tom, but his restaurant, if he's just like one meal per day, it looks like he's something that he's cooking from scratch.
Yeah.
Something healthy as well, because there's no point in just, you can come here, I'm going to offer you very cheap food, but also very bad for you food. Which will end up charging you, interest over time.
Most of
if
it
you get sick
is really good food. They actually make sure that the quality of their meals is like at a restaurant standard, which I think is really, really
amazing.
cool.
What a great story.
Yeah.
What a great story. It reminds me a little bit about the big long table that we're going to find in heaven, where Jesus says we're going to be sitting at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when the kingdom comes, and everybody will get to know each other.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And it is time for the answer to this quiz question that both me and Skafy apparently didn't get.
Yeah.
So, producer Tish, what is the answer to that quiz question?
Yeah, so Elliot, I think you may have had it right. It was Eliab, Jesse's oldest son, Samuel was told not to look at his appearance or height because he had already rejected him.
Yeah, there you go. I thought it was David. That's what I said.
That's what I said as well. And then I was like, hang on.
Yeah,
maybe
they're
it's
right.
one of
I
David's
thought,
brothers.
this isn't the David story. He was talking about David because God knows David's heart, but it turns out to be David's older brother, Eliab. Very interesting. There you go. Learned a new thing today. Thank you very much, Producer Tish. We are going to get into the story now, so I want you to buckle up, everyone, because this is one of the most dramatic underground rescue stories to hit the headlines in years. And this is the Laos cave drama unfolding right now in central Laos, with a gutsy South Australian diver actually playing a key role.
Yeah.
So it does have echoes of that famous Thai cave rescue from 2018. Remember where the soccer field, like with a bunch of 11 to 16-year-old boys were stuck 4 kilometers deep into a cave with their soccer coach?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they all got saved. So it does remind us a lot of that as well. But this one has its own pretty incredible twists.
Okay.
So the story started in May 20, so maybe about 10 days ago, when 7 local villagers from nearby communities in a remote mountainous province in Laos called, I'm probably butchering this word big time, Chai Sombun, I think it is, province, they headed deep into a limestone cave system. They're not tourists, they were not hiking, they were there because they were hoping to mine some valuable minerals, including gold.
Ooh.
That area has some gold. Now, it's not because they're greedy or anything like that, but because these are really poor folks, and sometimes this is one of the ways that they found to provide for their families.
Yeah.
So they go in these extremely dangerous cave systems trying to mine for some gold, which helps them and sometimes pays a little bit better than regular wages. But we're not talking about a lot.
Yeah.
Here in this case, we're talking about like really a poverty, out of desperation poverty move by these miners. So they went in, they brought some water, they brought some food, they were planning just a short trip, but heavy monsoon rains triggered a sudden flash floods and landslides.
Oh, no.
So gravel, dirt, and rising water sealed off the narrow tunnels, trapping them inside a terrifying maze of flooded passages that were about 300 meters deep.
That would be the scariest thing, I reckon.
It's very scary. One man managed to scramble out early and raise the alarm, but the other 7 were cut off with no way out, and they are all standing out in the at the top of a rock.
Whoa.
A little rock, and they were just like relying on this air pocket, this air bubble that formed around them. But guess what? They ran out of food. They were cold. They were wet. They had barely any light. And they were even wondering if anyone would ever come to their rescue. So for more than a week, these men were huddling together in total darkness in this high rocky ledge. And they're battling cold, hunger, exhaustion, the constant threat of more flooding or even cave collapse. These caves were actually quite muddy in the inside, so they're not particularly stable. And rescue teams from Laos and Thailand raced to the scene, but the conditions were brutal. Zero visibility, coffee-colored, muddy water.
Oh, man.
You cannot see anything. Razor-sharp rocks, unstable walls, and passages so tight you had to squeeze through on your belly.
Oh, okay. I just want to pause there.
Are you claustrophobic?
I could think of nothing worse than going caving. Like, who in their right mind goes, yeah, this is a really good idea. Let's crawl through some tight, narrow little hole that I can't even back out of.
I hear you. I've been caving before. It's actually quite fun if you're doing it in a safe place.
Yeah, maybe if you're doing it in a very big open cave.
Yeah, but these guys, man, they were doing it out of desperation, really.
Oh, man.
So the breakthrough came on May the 27th, so a couple of days ago.
Right.
A multinational dive team, including a Finnish diver called Mikko Pasi, they pushed through the flooded tunnels and they found 5 of the men alive.
Wow.
The relief was huge, but getting them out was a different story.
Yeah.
So they got an international squad of specialist cave divers from Thailand, Indonesia, France, Malaysia, Japan, and Australia.
Wow.
We're going to be talking about the Australian legend that went in. His name is Josh Richards. He's from South Australia, from the Limestone Coast. And he got the call because of his reputation for squeezing into the tightest, nastiest spaces. He dropped everything, flew to Laos, arrived just in time to help plan the extraction. Richard said that the cave was, his words, scary as hell.
Yeah.
He says diving blind in thick mud, squeezing his face through the mud, walls that could collapse at any moment. And his job was to widen some of these risky passages and reduce the dangers for the final push.
Oh, man.
So 3 days ago, on May 29, the first survivor, a 23-year-old man called Mued, was successfully guided out in a perilous 2-hour dive.
Oh,
The world held its breath. And then on May 30, on the Sabbath, the most incredible twist happened. The remaining 4 men, because remember that they identified 5 men,
Yeah.
the remaining 4 men did not wait. With rescue pumps lowering the water levels just enough, they swam and crawled 350 meters through the flooded section on their own steam and simply walked out of the cave, just as Josh Richards and the dive team were getting geared up to go back in.
wow.
So Josh tells about the story. They're getting, okay, we're ready to go. We're going, okay, we're going. And as they're getting ready to dive, all these heads were popping out of the water. 4 men rescued themselves.
Wow.
They rescued themselves.
That's
And they're calling this an
incredible.
absolute miracle. Because look, they don't have any diving gear.
Yeah.
They're just with the clothes of their body, just with sheer determination and hope.
Oh, man.
And that's where my spiritual application comes in. There's a chapter in the Bible in Ezekiel chapter 37, where Ezekiel is taken in a vision to a valley full of dried bones.
Right.
There's just dry bones everywhere. And God was asking Ezekiel, hey, Ezekiel, do you think that these dry bones can come to life? And Ezekiel's like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, no way, this can ever happen. Then God comes to him and says, well, prophesy to them. Tell them that the Lord God is going to rebuild them back up. He's going to bring the sinews back on,
Yeah.
the ligaments, the muscles. They're going to be coming back to life again. And Ezekiel said, okay, Lord, if you're saying so, I'm going to do this. So he said, and hey, this is the Lord. You are going to get back into life. And the moment that Ezekiel finished his sentence, all of these bones started to rattle together and started to join together one by one in the exact right order. And then once the full skeleton was built, sinews and muscles and tendons and fat started to move
Yeah.
out, and all these bones became living people.
Which is incredible.
Which is an incredible thing. It's a vision, but God is saying, hey, this is what my Holy Spirit does. This is what my word does. When you listen
Yeah.
to my word and you believe in these words, even dead, dry bones can come back to life.
Yeah.
Impossible things can happen. I was chatting with a friend of mine even yesterday, and I was mentioning that they're struggling with certain things, and they're saying, hey, can God help me with that? It says, yes. Well, you can pray and you can claim God's promises on that particular area for your life. And that person in particular, they were asking, hey, how can I not swear so much anymore? And I said, look, there's claim, and you'll see that God is going to work a miracle in your heart, just like He worked the miracle of the dried bones.
Yeah.
So when I look at that story, the sheer presence of hope, the sheer presence of the divers there, gave these men all the hope that they needed to say, you know what, we're getting out of this place. This is all the encouragement that we needed, that God is with us.
Yeah, that's...
So when we know that the Holy Spirit is with us, we will do things that we would never imagine ourselves capable of doing.
I could think of nothing worse, like no worse situation to be in than those guys.
Very bad situation. And look, the situation is not over yet, because as I mentioned, 5 men have been rescued out of 7. So there's two men still missing. And they are believed to be even further deep into the cave. And the access it started to rain even more since the rescue team got there.
Wow.
They don't know exactly, how they're going to rescue these men. But Josh actually found another entrance that goes down about 100 to 200 meters down in the middle of the thick forest jungle.
Wow.
And he was, going down like a hole, like a tiny little hole, crampy little hole. And he threw a rock, and he said that he counted 4 seconds until the rock hit the bottom. So we're talking about like
Whoa.
a good 100 meters down, that in this very, very tight space. But they say, hey, maybe we can go through there and find a little way, an alternative route into that cave, and see if we can rescue the other 2 men. This is incredibly risky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Risky. And look,
my goodness.
Josh Richards has actually a pretty interesting curriculum as well. He was he used to be in the army, in the Australian army. He worked with explosives and bomb disposal, which I guess you need to be absolutely brave to work with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He has been trained by the British Commandos. He's a physicist. He's a Mars One astronaut candidate, a writer, comedian, and even a ukulele playing koala performer.
That's a pretty extensive
he's the
resume.
ultimate small wiggly guy that squeezes into small spaces. So what an absolute legend.
Yeah, that's incredible.
What an absolute legend. So shout out to him. And we're praying that God will crown their efforts with success in reaching out to these two still lost miners. It's one teenage boy and one 33-year-old man.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we're now going to have an interview with Don Batten, Dr. Don, who is a specialist in plant physiology himself. He's going to be sharing with us some really interesting facts about plant life and the evidence of design. Dr. Don, good morning to you. It's great to have you here with us.
Good morning, Skafy. Good to be with you.
Oh, fantastic. Dr. Don, tell us a little bit about your passion for plants, a little bit about your background. Why is that a subject of your interest?
Well, yes, I did a PhD in plant physiology. Physiology is how plants work, so understanding what goes on inside plants. And they're fascinating. I mean, they're much more complex, biochemically than animals because they produce all their food just from carbon dioxide and water and light. So, we have to eat plants to live, but plants actually produce all the food we need to live. So they're just amazingly important and amazingly complex as well.
Yeah, because this is what I want to say, because when we talk about, when the people that adopt the theory of evolution to explain the origin of life, they often point to plants as, relatively simple forms of life. And I know that Darwin himself said that if we could just prove that there are structures that could not be explained by just the evolution or the combination of small parts coming together, that his whole theory would be disproved. And I think that a lot of people didn't get the memo, because the more we look into the complexity of life, the more we realize there's no way that a lot of these structures could be added just like one brick at a time. Is that true for plants as well?
Oh, absolutely, especially with photosynthesis. Photo is light, synthesis is the making of things, and so photosynthesis is how plants take light and use the energy from light to transform carbon dioxide and water into sugars. And sugars like glucose, for example, is one of the most important ones, but then glucose is used to make all the other things. So you've got amino acids, all the 20 amino acids we need to eat to live, and fats and all the different lipids and things, oils that we need. All these things that we need are actually produced by plants. So they're biochemically very complex. And the photosynthesis system is just absolutely gobsmacking amazing. And the whole thing needs to work together or it doesn't work at all. So the idea of it coming together as a series of little lucky accidents is just a preposterous idea. It's just amazing. There's two, plants are green. Obviously, most of the plants are green. So green comes from chlorophyll. Everybody would have heard of chlorophyll. But chlorophyll is a really complex compound, and it harvests the light. So it takes photons of light and feeds them into this very complex arrangement that, the first thing that happens is splits water. So, today we're producing sort of so-called hydrogen, green hydrogen, by splitting water using electricity. Well, that's basically what plants do. They take photons and they use the energy from the photons to supercharge electrons, and the energy of the photons is used to split the water, and from the water they get the electrons to then feed into the system to actually produce all the chemicals that we eat, like particularly glucose initially. So there's actually two stages in harvesting the light. So one photon's not enough to split water. So the plant actually harvests 4 photons from the light to split a water molecule. So how does it do that? Well, it actually builds up this sort of energy bank. So you can imagine putting money in your bank account. So you put in $1, you put in another $1, you got $2, put in $3, put in $4. Well, you put in the 4 photons into the bank, and it builds up the energy to the level where it can split water. And then there's a reaction center down in the middle of the thing where a very complex arrangement of calcium and manganese and a lot of other parts, which then feeds this energy that's been built up into the water to split it. And it all does that without any pollution or anything. No noise, no bangs, nothing. And then the electrons and the hydrogen from the water then go into this pathway, which then goes to what they call photosystem 1. Photosystem 2 is called photosystem 2 because it was found after photosystem 1, so it's a bit confusing, but photosystem 2 starts the process. Then it feeds the electrons and hydrogen to photosystem 2, which takes in more light, more photons, another 4 photons, and then supercharges these electrons and so on to feed them down the system. And then the hydrogen that comes from the water, it builds up inside the chloroplast inside the plant, and it forms, it can only get out through these special machines which actually spin and create ATP, which is an energy charged compound which is used to make the sugars later on. And all this is just gobsmackingly amazing. Each of these machines, none of these machines could have ever made themselves by natural processes, by some sort of lucky accidents, and it has to all function together for it to work. And it's just amazing. And that first stage, the photosystem 2, that splits the water, because when it splits the water, it produces oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen's used in the system to generate the ATP, which is then used, energy that's used to make sugars later on. But the oxygen, of course, is where the 20% oxygen in the atmosphere is produced by plants. So we breathe oxygen, and without the oxygen from the plants, we wouldn't be here either. So
and the oxygen of the plant, so the oxygen is basically a byproduct from that split between the hydrogen and oxygen from the water. Is that?
That's right, a byproduct, but a phenomenally important byproduct what God designed for animals and us to be able to breathe.
It's amazing, isn't it, that one form of life's waste is actually the other form of life's absolute gold and critical supply to existence. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Nothing is gold and waste.
Yeah. So plants were created on day 3 of creation week, and God saw that it was good. And interesting, the sun wasn't created till day 4 of creation week after the plants. And people say, oh, how can that be? How can you have plants before the sun? Well, in fact, on day 1, it says God created light, said let there be light, and there was light. So what was the source of that light? We don't know. I mean, it's the light, glory of God is the light, but it talks about that in Revelation and so on. But plants can last for 24 hours without sunlight anyway. So everybody knows that you go away for the weekend, your indoor plants don't die for lack of light. I mean, if they have couple of weeks without light, they'll die, but not a day. So there's no problem about that at all. And it's only the people that try to make the day into long periods of time.
That's right. And I can testify. I can testify from my avocado plants growing inside of my compost bin that they don't see the light of day for a long time, and yet they survive for actually a great period of time. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, impressive. Yeah. So it's only the people who try to make the days into long periods of time that's a problem, because they've got this billions of years idea in their head, but they're clearly days, because it says there's evening, morning, day 3, and evening, morning, day 4, and it's basically a 7-day week. So, but it's interesting. So, and back in the before sin, people were to eat plants. So, verse 29 of Genesis chapter 1 says there that people were to eat the plants. So, and the animals. In fact, it was really, really interesting. Verse 29 says, God says to Adam, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in it, its fruit. You shall have them for food, and of every beast of the earth, he said a similar thing. So back there before sin, things weren't eating one another, which when we talk about it being paradise in the Garden of Eden, things were perfect before sin. It wasn't until after sin that things started eating one another.
Well, that's amazing. There's so the original diet for all animals and humans was a plant-based diet in the Garden of Eden. There's no death included in the process of feeding and nutrition.
No, that's correct. So, but just amazing. And then when the hydrogen is used to make ATP, adenosine triphosphate's the big word, but many people would have heard of ATP. It's when you move your muscles, you use ATP. It's the energy currency of life. In fact, our bodies make about our body weight in ATP every day. That's how important it is.
Oh, wow.
But we use it. We use it all. So you can't blame ATP for getting overweight.
That's
but
amazing.
then, so the plant then uses that energy and the hydrogen to fix carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is taken into the plant. Then the hydrogen is added to the carbon dioxide to make hydrocarbons, your sugars, like glucose, and then all the other things. And then you add nitrogen, you can make amino acids. And the plant does all this. But the first thing it does is produce glucose from carbon dioxide and the hydrogen and the energy that's provided from the photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. And that's called the dark reactions because it can happen without the light. But it's amazing. So carbon dioxide, which a lot of people today think of as being some sort of nasty pollutant or something or other, no. It's the stuff of life. Plants take in carbon dioxide. It's plant food, and plants take in carbon dioxide to make all the food that we need to eat and to live. So, in fact, the increase in carbon dioxide in the last 30 years or so is helping feed the world, because when you give plants more carbon dioxide, they love it. They grow better, they produce more food. And it's been, there's a paper in Nature not long ago where they estimated that 30% of the world's food is currently due to the extra CO2.
Wow, that's incredible. I never heard about that. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Don,
Yeah.
we have about 3 minutes still left in this segment, but I'm really curious about how do plants, what structures do they use to feed themselves and to absorb nutrients from the soil? How does it work? Is it just a straightforward process, or it is also a quite complex endeavor?
Oh, it's quite complex, yes. So they take minerals. They need these minerals, like magnesium, for example, is in the middle of the chlorophyll, magnesium compound. And they need nitrogen. They need all the other minerals and things for the enzymes and things that they use to do all the amazing things they do. So how do they get those from the soil? Well, the minerals like magnesium and potassium are dissolved in the water in the soil, and the plant absorbs them through the roots. But it's not just a matter of a passive absorption. They've actually got special channels in the surface which actually selectively take up these things. So there's a channel for potassium and a channel for magnesium and so on. And on top of that, many plants actually make use of microbes like fungi to help them absorb the nutrients. So they're called mycorrhizal organisms. And some plants won't grow without them. In fact, citrus, you can't grow citrus in a sterile medium, a sterile potting mix. You have to have the microbes there in the soil, otherwise they won't grow. So,
which only
so
really adds to the complexity, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It does enormously, and the efficiency of the plants to be able to extract these minerals out of the soil and using the microbes to do it. And what do the microbes get out of it? Well, the plant gives them the food. See, the fungi can't produce their glucose, so they get the glucose from the plant, and in return, the plant gets the minerals from the fungus. Right. So it's a symbiosis, it's called, with mutual, help. All this is just amazing stuff, and God's just amazing when you think about what he designed and how he put it all together.
Absolutely. And Dr. Don, how can we learn more about this topic in plant life. Are there articles that you've written about that, or in creation.com? Can you give us some ideas of where to find more?
So you can go to creation.com and just search for photosynthesis. You'll find a number of articles which talk about that. You can also get some really good diagrams on the internet, just generally from the secular world, and showing the amazing complexity of photosynthesis. And so some good stuff out there that's just freely available to anybody. But photosynthesis is just amazing, and how God designed that for life on Earth. Without photosynthesis, there would be no life on Earth, basically.
Amazing. Dr. Don, look, I never realized how complex photosynthesis was. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable, the amount of molecular machinery involved to make life happen, which I believe points to a very intelligent and creative engineer God. Dr. Don, thank you so much. We're looking forward to have you again with us next time, and to talk more about creation and plants and all things intelligent design. We're looking forward to have you again.
Thanks, Skafy. God bless.
My pleasure.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.